I want to start by sharing with you a story that beautiful practitioner in our community, practitioner Barb Jennings-Grant, told me last week. I don't even know where you were. I clearly need more details on this story. But she fell, and she broke her glasses and gave herself a black eye, like it was a serious thing. She fell, this way. And she said, it's really interesting having been in this teaching so long, because even as I was falling and my body was experiencing all of the panic and the fear and even while that's happening, there was a part of me that was going, well, this is interesting. And she said that part of her was almost joyful, while this other part of her was experiencing this And it really made me think. Thank you, Practitioner Barb, for making me think, because I've been thinking about this a lot, about in our human experience, how often we are having this thing in all of our glorious humanness, while at the same time there is a part of us that knows a bigger truth. And I want to break that down for us a little bit today. But before I do, I want to start all of it by saying, of course, there isn't a human and a spirit. There's no such thing as God and love and universe and. There is only love as, God as, universe as. And so the thing that we experience as two things, it really isn't. There's only one thing happening here. But in all of our wonderful brain processes, that's not always how we experience it. So the thing that we're going to talk about today is the experience of it and how we can experience it a little bit differently and how we can grow in it also. But I just want us all on the same page. There's not actually two things happening. There's no God and. There's only love. That's it. So after hearing this story from practitioner Barb Sunday night, Michael and I found ourselves in the emergency room with our wee lad. And he's fine. He's totally fine. He's at home with his Switch, and his sisters living his best life this morning. So he's totally fine. But Sunday night, we were at the ER with him, and I was thinking back to that story that Barb had told me just that morning about how even while my human mind is falling, crap, we're going to the ER again. There's a part of me that absolutely knows my son's glorious wholeness and health. It's not even a question in my mind. How can I have those two experiences at the same time? And then that got me thinking even further about the holidays coming. And right here in this very room, we have people whose college kids came home for the first time this year. And we're busy getting ready for the holidays, super excited. And we have people in this room who are experiencing their first holiday without their lifelong partner, right? How do we hold as a community those extremes in the spectrum of our experience and still live in the fullness of who we are? And that got me thinking even a step further. I listened to a really interesting panel of, it was Bishop William Barber, and there was a rabbi, and there was an imam, and they were talking about what's happening in Israel. And it really helped me to understand that what Hamas did on October 7th was atrocious. It was awful. It was a terrorist attack, and they continue to perpetrate war crimes by hiding behind civilians. That's illegal in the rules of war. God, I hate that we have rules of war. And so that's over here. And Israel's response is also horrific. And in the midst of that horror, every single day we pray knowing God in the midst of it all. Love in the midst of it all. And sometimes I have a hard time reconciling all of that in my human experience. I realize that holding two conflicting truths, two experiences or two ideas that both seem to be true at the same time, that is not easy for us humans. We really like right and wrong, black and white. Our brains are actually structured to categorize. They really like categorizing, especially the good and the bad. This is for me, this is not for me. Our brains are not so great at holding conflict. And when both things are true, we can find ourselves in kind of a, I've heard it called a liminal space. It's a between place where two paradoxical things appear to be true at the same time. Here's another seeming paradox that we experience here in New Thought. You know, on the one hand, we believe in the power of positive thinking. Change your thinking, change your life, right? But also, toxic positivity is toxic. But so is unchecked negativity. Emotional and spiritual bypass are toxic. And there is a lot of science about the good effects of positive thinking in our lives. Just this week, I read there was a meta-analysis, which means they look at a whole bunch of studies and try and pull together threads instead of just looking at one study. So there was a meta-analysis, and it came to this conclusion. People between the ages of 40 and 90 tend to live longer if they are more optimistic, even taking into account other factors like their diet, smoking, alcohol use, depression, and health conditions. Positive thinking is good for us. So be positive, but not too positive. Know your spiritual wholeness, but don't bypass your feelings. Are there places in your life where you can relate to this? Yeah. I think we all relate to this. I remember being a baby practitioner student 23 years ago, walking out of a class with Reverend Sally Rudis. And I remember thinking, I know my truth, I know my truth, I know my truth, I know my truth. And then I got home and I couldn't pay my light bill. And I was really confused about how those two things could happen at the same time. It feels really ungrounding to be in that place. I know for me personally, I can feel like I'm kind of being pushed and pulled in two different directions. And neither direction is wrong. My human experience is my human experience. I don't get to argue with that, and neither do you. This is what's happening in my life. That's not wrong. But knowing the spiritual truth is also not wrong. But neither one feels wholly satisfying when they're not being reconciled. So this is what I want us to talk about today. What I have learned is that there's a space in this experience. There's an in-between place in the midst of the push-pull, and it is holy and it is sacred. This liminal space, that place between places. And in many ways, it's the very tension between these two things that helps us to move forward. This tension creates friction in our lives. You know, without friction, a car would just spin its wheels. It couldn't actually move forward. We need friction to hold us down to the earth in this experience. So there's nothing wrong with this friction. There's nothing wrong with this tension. I firmly believe that without this tension, we would just be comfortable. When we can hold ourselves in this place of the both and, where both things can be true, the place of tension and release, we have the capacity for great transformation. The Christian mystic Richard Rohr describes this space as where we are betwixt and between the familiar and the completely unknown. There alone is our old world left behind, while we are not yet sure of the new existence. That's a good space where genuine newness can begin. So when we find ourselves in this place, that's a good space where genuine newness can begin. I want to tell you something. Whatever is happening in your life, something is coming next. There is something that is coming for you. And when we are in this place, we get a say in how that something comes. We're going to talk more about that. But something is coming next. Something is coming next for you. Something is coming next for me. Something is coming next for this beautiful community. Something is coming next for Israel, for Gaza, for all of the Jewish people, the Arab people, the Palestinians, something is coming next. We are not going to live like this forever. And I'm really interested in how we can use this place of tension for good. What I've discovered in my life is that when I am in this place of tension, if I can bring my attention to it, if I can get centered, if I can pay attention, what I find is that I can have one foot solely grounded in the human experience. And I can have another foot solely, completely grounded in spiritual truth. And when I can stand balanced and grounded in that place, then suddenly I have full access to all of my physical, emotional, and spiritual faculties. And I have access to the wisdom of the universe, the love of the universe. And this is the place of power, because it is only in this place, when we are grounded in both, that we have full access to all of our power. This is it. And so the invitation today is to learn to be okay with the tension, maybe even to learn to celebrate it. Because when we are fully present in this fullness of life, we're in a place of transformation and growth. This is the place where we can make those small shifts that have huge effects on our lives. So I'm going to give you 3 tools today to help to actually make these shifts. Number 1, when you notice that you're feeling pulled in different directions, I'm going to invite you to stop and get present with what's going on. On the one hand, ask yourself, what is feeling true about this human experience? I'm not going to deny that this experience is happening. It's definitely happening. So what am I feeling about it? And allow your feelings to bring you fully present. And then, and only then, ask, and what is the greater truth to be known here? Because no matter what my human experience is, I have a very limited capacity for understanding it, because I only know what I know. And the older I get, the more I found out that I don't know very much. I have so much to learn, and there's so much going on in this world that I don't comprehend, and why should I? It's not mine to comprehend. But I can understand that whatever I think my human experience is just a slice of the pie. And that there's a higher wisdom self within me that actually does know more. And when I can ground myself both in having that full human experience and in the spiritual principle, the truth, then I have access to my full power. So, you know what I call it for myself? I call it the facts and the truth. The facts are what's happening in my human world, in my experience. They're facts, right? But the ultimate truth lies with spirit. And there's a part of me that has full access to that too. There's a part of you that has full access to that. So once you are fully grounded in both your human experience and in the spiritual truth that there is something greater, even if you can't see it yet, that there is a truth to be known, even if you don't know what that is yet. Once you're grounded in that, then you can open yourself up to possibility. I loved the what if tool that Reverend Shannon gave us last week. Did you hear Reverend Shannon's talk last week? If not, really, go to YouTube and watch this talk, and then come back and watch the rest of this one, because this what if tool is a portal to hope. When you're sitting in the ER with your 9-year-old kid, again, what if everything's going to be okay? What if things could get better? What if there is something better waiting for me on the other side of this experience? What if the journey itself of getting to the other side of this experience can also be turned into something joyful and loving and fulfilling? What if? And just that what if, it opens a portal of hope. But the other thing that it does is it gives our brilliant brains something positive to obsess on. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but your brain is a little obsessive. It really likes to focus on something and some of us even more than others. And asking the what if questions gives your brilliant brain something, oh, what if? Oh, and then your brain goes, well, if that's true, then maybe this could be true too. And it gives your brain something healthy to chew on. Our brains like to chew on things. So let's give it food that is healthy, that works for it. So get grounded in your experience. Open a portal to hope and possibility with the what if practice that Reverend Shannon gave us. And then, once you are fully grounded in that place and open to possibility, then you can set a course for your life with intention. Because here's the thing, that thing that is coming next, right? Often it's out of our control. Sorry. It'd be so much better if I could just control it all, but I can't. That thing that's coming next, whatever is on the other side of this experience, we don't always get to control it, but we do get to control our direction and how we are going to meet it. So I want to talk about intention a little bit. Intention is different from goal setting. Goals are great. I love goals. In business, we talk about SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. I actually prefer, instead of specific for the S, I prefer stretch. I like stretch goals. I like to set goals that are going to make me do something different to get there. So stretch, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Those are SMART goals. SMART goals are very of this world. They're very over here in our human reality, right? They're very setting a course for your life. A SMART goal is being definite with the infinite, as Reverend Shannon likes to say, and it gives our brilliant brains directions. Goals are great, and intention is a little bit different. Intention speaks the language of spirit. Intention says, okay, all right, we want to get there, but this is how we're going to do it. Or even better yet, this is who we're going to be while we do it. Intention comes from the Latin word intendere. And in Latin, this is my 12 years of Latin coming out here for a second. I'm going to give you a little Latin teaching. There's a word for that, lesson. I'm going to give you a little Latin lesson. So every syllable in Latin is important. And your prefixes, those first syllables, are really important. And so the two X and in, experience, extreme, X. X always means from starting here, I'm going to go there. X always means from here to there. Well, in Latin is opposite. It always means from there to hear. In Latin, anytime you see the prefix in, it always means you're coming back home to yourself. So that's the first part of intention. And then tendere, think of tender, legal tender, or to tender someone your resignation, right? You're giving someone something with purpose. And so tendere means to stretch with purpose. So an intention means to stretch inward with purpose. Isn't that beautiful? That's what our intentions are. An intention is that inward stretch that speaks to your unique life purpose. So the goal says, this is where I want to go, and the intention says, and I want to get there in a loving way, in a kind way, in a way that partners with spirit, in a way that serves not only my life, but the lives around me, in a way that grows me, stretches me, activates my potential. That's what our intentions give us. In the midst of it all, in the midst of all of it, there's a space for grace to take form in your life. And your intention is what provides the mold for that grace to move into and through your life. So what does that look like in practice? So for Alex, let's circle back to that story about him being in the ER last weekend. Our goal was we wanted our kid healthy again. We wanted to go home with a kid who wasn't throwing up on our hair. That's what we wanted. So our goal is a healthy Alex. The intention is, so the goal becomes talk to his doctors about next steps. That's a human-oriented goal. But the intention that we went into it with was to bring kindness and humor to every interaction. You see? So the goal says the what, and the intention says the who I'm going to show up as. Another one that I had this week is Thanksgiving. It's coming. I had some big goals that had to do with checking off the massive to-do list of menu planning, shopping, food prep, house cleaning, all of the things. It's mud season at my house, y'all. I have 3 dogs. I have a list that I am checking off. And you know what? I also have intentions because I want to be a beneficial presence in the world. That's what our dear Dr. Noel McGinnis taught us. Because I'm really committed to that, I just called up a friend who's struggling and said, hey, jet me your grocery list. Let me drop some groceries off at your house while I'm out. Easy, right? But in the midst of my goals, I can still choose to be a beneficial presence with intention of who I'm going to be in the world. Thomas Merton said, we must make the choices that enable us to fulfill the deepest capacities of our real selves. And we make those choices through our intentions. I am currently in ministerial school, as you all know, getting my master's degree in consciousness studies. And every single class, no matter what it's on, I'm becoming more and more clear that life is in the meaning that we make of it. It really isn't in the what happened. It's in the meaning that we make about the what happened. As one beautiful congregant shared with me this morning from his journal practice, he said, the past is just that. It's in the past. Isn't that beautiful? The past is just that. It's the past. But what is the meaning that we're going to make of it? We humans are meaning makers. There's a wonderful poet that I discovered on Substack named Andrea Gibson. And she has a beautiful way of making meaning. This is an excerpt of a piece that they wrote about their intention for their life. I invite you to take a breath. See if any of these intentions resonate with you. To see through the lens of my spirit and not the bruised and clouded eyes of my wounds. To wear my heart on my sleeve and never grow out of that shirt. To stand guard over my own attention. To understand how much my attention is worth and to only let it be bought by the silver in my love's hair, the gold of an aspen tree in autumn. To grieve the way nature grieves. To weep like the first rain of spring. To think like an inventor. To refuse to be a product of a thought assembly line. To sense with senses the world taught us do not exist. To know what lives at the root of my fear and to weed that garden until only truth blooms. To reckon with my trauma until it is a poem no longer written in blood. To know shame can't live in the light and let the light fall wherever I am hiding. To dance like everyone is watching, but so what? To channel a mother's forgiveness. To see people as a mystery, especially those I know best. To be what Mary Oliver called a bride married to amazement, and to not file for divorce from amazement when my life is hard. To know exactly what parts of me are comforted by other people's approval and to comfort those parts of me instead. To love my body as if it were my soul's silhouette. To break the vows I have made to my suffering. To interrupt my judgments, criticism, and blames, knowing they are almost always trying to distract me from my own pain. To be guided by giving instead of getting. To live in a bungalow of kindness. To know that every leaf, every river, every sunrise is like a child saying, "Watch me, watch me. Watch me." To repeatedly meet the euphoria of being thankful in moments I am told gratitude is impossible. And to live like I'm kissing the universe on her temple. As we love ourselves into this holiday season, I invite you to consider your intention. What is your intention for your life? What is your intention for what you want for others, for who you want to be for others, for who you want to be in the world? We can stand in the facts of our experience and in the truth of the infinite power within you. And know that those two things are not at odds with each other. Rather, they are working in tandem to create a space in your life, a space of power, a space of grace. I invite you to become comfortable in this space, befriend it, and allow it to grow you, to move you, to love you.